It's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever, Wally.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, covering news, culture, manic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. Welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, the most watched daily Bitcoin only live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. So much to uncover. First off, I gotta say, the presidential debate. Who's really running the country? Like, that was absolutely insane. Also, this seems to be a topic that you guys really enjoy. So we like to do this topic at least once a month because we got to give the people what they want. And of course, the topic is, how much Bitcoin does it take to be in the 1% of hodlers? But we're going to change it up today. And we're going to talk about just the 1% in general and how Bitcoin could potentially be it's a surprising, it's not as much Bitcoin as you think to potentially be in the 1% in the future. And remember, the thing that I always quote, and I think Nayib Bukele has even said this as well, and I think it just highlights Bitcoin's scarcity, is that there's 61 million millionaires all around the world, but there's only 21 million. Meaning, if every millionaire around the world wanted to buy just one Bitcoin, they literally couldn't, right? I think it highlights Bitcoin's scarcity. I think it highlights how early we are because people haven't awoken to this reality, but I think it's inevitable that they do. So lots to talk about today. Absolute clown show last night. Like I said, another great example as to why you should opt out of political money, of fiat money, because if not, like, those are the people in charge. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, it was crazy. I could not believe my eyes. So we're going to talk about that. And also, there seems to be this video that's making the rounds. Once again, we always like to highlight this because one of the things we like to do on Simply Bitcoin is we like to break the echo chamber, and we like to see how much progress we're making. And of course, there was this individual that just posted on TikTok, and he was talking about the fact that, you know, he wasn't believing the inflation numbers. The inflation numbers were not making sense whatsoever. And again, this completely, it contradicts what the official reports are. Like, you see the CPI, you're like, okay, it's 3%, whatever. But if you take a look at the actual prices, according to this video from 2022, the price increase has been 4x. So 400% in 2 years. Like, no wonder people are hurting. No wonder people are feeling in pain. And it seems, again, like they're manipulating the CPI for political means and political purposes, but the sticker shock doesn't lie. You can only propagandize that to a certain extent. And it's our job as Bitcoiners to really get the message out there so that people could understand that it's not red versus blue, it's not Democrat versus Republican, it's the party of orange versus the party of fiat, and the party of Bitcoin, of course. And Bitcoin fixes the inflation issue. It fixes it. It fixes it. If you move to a Bitcoin standard, life gets progressively cheaper over time. And it's our responsibility to get that message out there because I truly believe it'll make the world a much better place. Anyways, I do want to bring on our co-host. How you doing, Opti? What's up, bro? Dude, that debate though, bro. That debate though, bro.
Yeah, it was something else. I think, honestly, Nico, I think it's the first debate I've watched in probably my whole life. So I don't have any context on it, but man, it was pretty brutal on both sides. And even taking politics aside, just looking at both of the candidates, it doesn't really make you hopeful for the future of America in general. Like, it was a clown show period. It was really reminding me of like little kids yelling at each other on stage. But the question that I think is the really defining mark after that is what you said, who's really in control, and further highlighting just how much the media has been outright lying the last couple of years. So hopefully this is a pendulum swing and people are waking up to what's going on in the world. And I think this is one of those defining moments. And at this moment, when we talk about the presidential debates, presidential to be election, I'm always reminded of what Nolan said. Shouts out to Nolan of The Breakup, one of my favorite content creators. but he constantly says that what we're seeing right now is further proof that, quote unquote, the most powerful man in control, aka the president, really doesn't do much. He's just a figurehead, and it goes to the question of who's really running things. You know, we had a reality TV star as our president a while ago, and then now we have can I even say it, someone with mental illness that can barely complete a sentence as our president.
Like, hold on a second. Like, dude, like the dude's 80 something years old, and
yeah, I'm not
clearly
he's got dementia. Can we say that? Can we say it now?
No,
I don't know.
I mean,
Can we say it?
That's not a bad thing. Like, we're not trying to like bro, like clearly, okay, what I'm trying to say is like that dude has access to nuclear codes. All right.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts. All right. And then and it's what you said, like, who's really in control? And I think really something that I want to touch on today is, why did the media cover it up for so long? Like, isn't it the job of journalists to report what is really going on? And there's been so many like legacy media articles of examples of journalists like Joe Biden is fine, he's great, he's capable, and then like social media doesn't lie. Like the videos came out. Like there was one where he attended a ceremony during like the D-Day remembrance, and the dude like you know, how do I put this nicely? Like he looked like he pooped his pants, right?
Nico, you can't say that on YouTube.
What do you mean?
I'm just trolling.
Like, so like, you know, it seems like elderly abuse. Like it seems like he like he is like a front man for what I would say is the unelected bureaucracy, which some people call the deep state. I call the administrative state. And essentially, they're essentially people that stay in power, bureaucrats that stay in power regardless of who's elected to office. And it really seems like they've been calling the shots the entire time. Like, you can't tell me that, you know, Joe Biden has been making the decisions. And then you're like, okay, Nico, but this is a Bitcoin show, like blah, blah, blah. Absolutely, it's a Bitcoin show, because the administrative state and this administration has been extremely hostile towards Bitcoin, right? Operation Choke Point 2.0, the proposed Bitcoin mining ban. Like, yeah, that whole, and it makes sense, right? Because the administrative state is funded by the Federal Reserve. Right? It's funded by the unique ability to create money for free that the rest of us have to work for. So yeah, man, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Anyways, we do have a guest today. We got Uncle Jack in the house. Uncle Jack, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, no problem, guys.
Appreciate it. And yeah, man, what are your thoughts? Did you see what we saw last night?
Yeah, well, I watched a debate on X because I thought it would be interesting, you know, to see how Bobby would answer some of the questions, you know, that were posed to the two former presidents. And to be honest with you, I think the thing that I saw, I don't know how you guys felt about it because I haven't been listening. I've been in Clubhouse talking to the Bitcoiners. What I saw is the end of the USSR happening in America. The administrative state is now actively collapsing. So, you know, when we hear, you know, OG Bitcoiners talk about gradually and suddenly, I think we're actually seeing exactly what's going on here. And I don't know how much of you guys have talked about the two Supreme Court cases that got announced.
Yes.
This is even a bigger deal. Why? Because this is limiting federal power. And if you're put your goggles on to see what's coming down the road, this tells us that the captured, you know, parts of the government are actually going to be taken out. Well, this is good news because we know that Biden turned over his financial stake really to Elizabeth Warren and Brad Sherman, but Warren has taken the lead here and trying to screw, you know, Bitcoin. And I would actually say even Ethereum. The difference that I see is even that's going to get taken to the woodshed. But what we need as we the people, I'm talking about now as an American, because I am in Florida today, I'm not in El Salvador. We as the people need to facilitate that. All of us, none of us need to be told buying Bitcoin is an act. It's probably a greater act than actually voting. It's more powerful than voting. But the point that you guys were making right before I came on, where I would disagree with both of you, having been in El Salvador before legal tender was made legal, I told people that Bitcoin law did not change the things in El Salvador. It turned out that it was Bukele and his policies that changed it. So I would tell both of you guys as young guys, go back and listen to his CPAC speech when he basically told the supporters of Trump that it makes more sense. It's not the next president that's important. It's the way his diagnostic abilities are and how we change the world the way we want it to be changed. I think that's really, really important for people to understand that we collectively, as we the people, need to keep facilitating the takedown of the wall being the administrative state. You know, it was like the Berlin Wall when Gorbachev was, you know, basically dismantling it in 91. You guys are probably too young to understand a lot of that stuff as it was going on, but I lived through it. And I will tell you that I'm seeing the same thing. I thought last night was actually the first time that I could say the administrative state is in and running for cover. The industrial military complex, however, that's running the country, there's now a power void, and that is going to create a very interesting situation, both in the United States, I think in Ukraine, in Russia, and also in Europe. And I think the issue is a moot point in Ukraine and Russia. I think Putin understands what's going on. I think where the bloodshed is going to happen is going to be actually in the United States, and I think it's going to be in Europe where we have our installed military. I think some of the stuff that went on with the Jan 6s now with the Supreme Court ruling, that falls apart. What happens? Will Biden step back on the 25th Amendment? We've already seen people call for it this morning. I think that is going to happen. I think LBJ did the same thing in 68 when he decided not to run because of Vietnam. But will Kamala Harris, you know, assume her role as the obedient idiot and step back? I actually don't think she's going to. I think they're going to use her political history from California to smear her. If that doesn't work, then I think we're going to go back to 1963 where we use acute lead toxicity to clear the deck. And then I think you'll see who they put in. I think who the administrative state will put in will be probably one of these three people or a combination thereof. Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Gavin Newsom. And I think then they're going to have to figure out the problem with Bobby Kennedy. Are they going to be able to steal 30, 40 million votes? You know, last time it was easy. They didn't have to steal that many. This time is going to be a much bigger problem. But the point that I would make to you guys, and I made this in Clubhouse a little while ago, and I want you guys to understand this because we're all Bitcoiners at heart. When Bukele made Bitcoin legal tender with maulers in 19, early 20, that was before he really solved the big problem. Bitcoin didn't solve the big problem in El Salvador. It was actually when Bukele got in with 53% of the vote and didn't have one person in new ideas in the Congress. Just realize this, not one person is in Congress. Yet he was able to change sentiment because of the leadership that he showed. He did all the right things because he made the right diagnosis. He went right for the jugular because people were getting shaken down by the gangs. And he realized if I could put $300-400 a month back in people's pockets, which is what our problem is in the States. Inflation is the huge problem. The two guys that were on the debate stage last night are the fucking idiots that caused this problem by spending, $6 trillion to ignite the inflation, maneuver. We all like that as Bitcoiners because, we want to see it burn down. We want to see Bitcoin take over. But I don't think any of us as Bitcoiners want to see, the power void of the United States go away because I think what's left in his wake could be pretty bad. But I do think we need a controlled demolition. And I think we, the people, have a duty to continue to do that. I don't think programs like this or podcasts that are Bitcoin saying just keep buying Bitcoin and that's enough. No, I don't think it is. I think Bukele showed that it wasn't enough. And I think good leadership does matter. I think who we vote for really does matter. And I know your generation does not believe that with some good reason.
So so I would disagree because I have said.
Well, he's kind of right. A lot of people in the audience.
I think they're disaffected. I would say that
Jack just said.
Yeah, I would say that they're very disaffected with politics, and I think Opti and I in the last 4 or 5 months we've been trying to like finesse people or get people comfortable with the idea that we all as Bitcoiners really fundamentally believe in the idea of the sovereign individual. And in the theory of that book, it basically makes the case that information technologies is going to make politics irrelevant. However, what we've been saying over the last couple months is that we're not there. We're in the transitionary period. And in the transitionary period, I think fiat politics matter a lot, right? And I've stuck by that, right? And the current administration, which I really believe is a representation of the administrative state, has been extremely hostile towards the industry. And that's where, RFK and Trump came in and they basically said, you know what, we're going to be pro Bitcoin, anti CBDC. And you're absolutely right about the 2 rulings from the Supreme Court. I believe one of them was the Chevron deference, and it takes more power away from the unelected bureaucracy, and it either gives it back to the states or it gives it back to Congress, where it technically should be, right? So yeah, I truly believe that the pendulum is swinging. We're in this like 4th turning type moment in American history. But what's really beautiful about this is last night it was an unmasking. The emperor had no clothes. There was no amount. They prepared him for 2 weeks in Camp David, right? And it was still not enough. And no matter how much they changed the debate rules to benefit one side, they would mute the mic. There was no crowd. There was no nothing. It still couldn't do anything. And you're 100%. You're 100% right when you say this is, the downfall of the USSR and the US. I see it too, right? And it's very reminiscent of that, like the late days of the USSR. Like it reminds me of a Solzhenitsyn's quote, right, where they're lying. They're lying. We know they're lying, and they're lying anyways. Like we're at that moment in the movie, 1,000,000%. And I agree with you. Like Bitcoiners have this very idealistic way of saying, I could take Bitcoin into self-custody. That's a very important vote. I 100% agree. But politics still matter where we are right now in today's society.
I can tell you that, and I don't know how much you guys know about me, but just like in Bitcoin Clubhouse 3.5 years ago, when I told people I was going to move most of my businesses and my clinics to El Salvador and I was going all in, I had Jason Williams, HODL, telling me that they're going to cut my arms off, cut my head off, rip my carotids out, steal my Bitcoin. And I was like, guys, you haven't been down to El Salvador. I don't think you understand really what's going on. And long story short, I actually saw what effective leadership was for the first time in my life. I thought one time that Ronald Reagan was really good at doing this in the States. And I realized probably within a year of being in El Salvador that Ronald Reagan can't hold the torch to Bukele. What Bukele did, systematically changing that country in a very short period of time, was huge. And now we're seeing the same game plan happen in Argentina, where literally in 6 months, seeing a government slashed and burned by closing large sections of the government. I think effective leadership and voting and people matter. But you know what? We've got to help. And, to show you how much I believe in this, when Bukele asked my help to write the constitutional amendment for medical freedom law 1.5 years ago, and I gave it to him, I told him the story of Benjamin Rush. I told him the story about how the American Constitution has this open attack vector through medical tyranny. And Thomas Jefferson and Madison never thought that this would ever be used. Why? Because in their study of history, it had never been used before in the history of humanity. And it doesn't mean because it wasn't used that it wasn't effective, but the guys in the industrial military complex realized that. And that was the angle of attack that they used. And it began in 82 with Reagan. Believe it or not, Reagan put Fauci in. And then how did we see Fauci's power get stronger? Well, the first big thing was the Bayh-Dole Act that happened in 86, where basically research scientists in the government would benefit off taxpayer NIH papers that came out. Then how was it crystallized. Then it was crystallized in the vaccine law where Big Pharma was given legal immunity. Now, I don't have to tell you the rest of the story because we all lived it. So the big issue is when I explained this to Bukele in his basement in El Salvador, and I said, look, this is the major attack vector. COVID was a compliance test for an economic reset that's coming. You've already given your people, the insurance company, Bitcoin, a year before this. I said, this needs to be solved with a constitutional amendment. Well, hard stop. Even though Bukele at that time was extremely popular, he didn't have the ability to change the Constitution because he didn't have the votes in Congress. Well, long story short, February 4th comes. The law was already written from August the year before. He gets 95% of Congress. So right now, we're changing that. So the reason I wanted to give you guys this background story is I want you to know that effective leadership, voting, politics, actually that does matter. Why? Because the WHO treaty, the things that you seeing today in the United States can't happen in El Salvador anymore. Okay. Yeah. It will not be able to be an attack vector. And Bitcoiners should really, really pay attention to this because we all do a good job of knowing about the 51% attack and how ridiculous that is now. But that wasn't a ridiculous story 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was a real issue that we had to deal with. Well, I'm telling you, this medical freedom law, and for those of you who don't know, after I wrote the law, through some of my friends that you may have heard of, Rick Rubin and Jack Dorsey, I was able to sit down with Bobby Kennedy and share the law that I wrote for Bukele. And guess what? Bobby Kennedy now is using 4 pages of that law. And it turns out the person who's his VP candidate, Nicole Shanahan, also happens to be tied to Uncle Jack through a very interesting, link. And realize that her boyfriend now, her ex-husband was Sergey Brin. But her boyfriend now used to be a VP of Lightning Labs. He's a big-time Bitcoin OGer. If you don't think that the people who are installed around us, like I'm not here to tell you guys who to vote for, but I'm just going to tell you, we can't solve all of America's problems right away. But the things that we need to solve immediately, we need to get Bitcoin and replace that with the Fed. We need to get medical freedom laws. So what happened to us the last 4 years can't happen. And we need to close the southern border so 100%. That there's not a direct invasion, so that we're having replacements, for the people that got taken to the woodshed by our government. Our government is the largest criminal enterprise on the world now. And the problem is, I'm not taking blame. All 3 of us in this room right now, we're part of the problem. If you think that Bitcoin alone is enough to solve this, you're a fucking idiot. And the thing is, we have to do more. So what do we have to do now? We have to do what Paul Revere did. We have to light fires everywhere to get the people who try to take our freedoms away out of the government. Permanent.
Metaphorical fires, because we're on YouTube, right?
Right. Well, and I think I would even think the censors in YouTube would understand that what we're talking about is that we need to take control back in our country. I think everybody who's a Bitcoin has already done that through self-custody and through their purchase of Bitcoin. But I'm here to tell you it's not enough. I'm here to tell you guys, as the young guys that are going to take over this world. I mean, look, I'm a fucking boomer that you guys usually make fun of. I know American Hodl does all the time. But guess what? All my people that have lots of money are more fed up than you guys are. Okay? Why? Because we've lived through this shit. We saw the industrial military complex kill JFK. We saw Bobby Kennedy get taken out in the summer of '68 because he was going to light the fuse to go after the CIA and the FBI again. I get it, bro. I've lived it. But here's the thing. Buying Bitcoins is not enough. And when you guys say simply Bitcoin, I just want you to realize there's more that we can all do. Keep fanning the flames. Let's keep helping each other out. This spans ideology. It spans your opinion of the stuff that I teach in medicine. We need to come together and realize that we can change the world. See, the people that they're supporting that idiot last night that was on the stage, they're crumbling. Their power is absolutely crumbling before our eyes. And what we need to do is we need to be the new Minutemen. We need to be the ones that show people exactly how this is done. Like Bukele's given the world the example. Malay is now doing it. I don't want to hear any American tell me that we can't change this country fast, because guess what? We've got 2 presidents that are showing you it's possible. But you know what we need to do? We need to help build the world that we want. That's what we need to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Take action.
Bars.
Take the bull by the horns. Get involved. I 100% agree with you, Uncle Jack. Bitcoin's not enough. This is a revolution, peaceful revolution of personal responsibility. It's our responsibility to get the message out there and to really awaken people to what is going on. And yes, I completely agree. Bukele has laid out the game plan. The legacy corporate media, which is not really media, I would really consider it propaganda at this point. The amount of attacks that they gave Bukele, and despite all the attacks, despite saying, all this BS, he was able to overcome. But we do have to pay the bills and we have to move on to the next segment. So I do want to give a very special shout out to our lead sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the best place to build your Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. It's a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, all you got to do is you put in your email address. It's a clear 1% spread. It's obviously Bitcoin only. And most importantly, it's non-custodial, empowering sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. That means that you can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you intend to take self-custody. So as soon as the funds clear, you make your purchase, go straight to your self-custody wallet. You can't even leave it on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Also, if you're an existing Bitcoin Well user, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn points, and you can use those points towards the Bitcoin wishing well. I'm going to give you guys an example of what that is now. We're going to toss a coin into the Bitcoin wishing well. Like I said, you earn these points by buying Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, and it gives you an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshi. So first person to scan the QR code on the screen right now wins 500 sats. By the way, if you use the promo code simplybtc, you get 3 free tosses into the Bitcoin wishing well for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. Guys, support Bitcoin on-ramps that are self-custody by default. Check out bitcoinwell.com today to get started. All right, everybody, let's move on to the numbers. Lots to talk about.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, to get started, all you got to do is scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Stamp Seed website. Don't write down your generational wealth on a piece of paper. Stamp it onto titanium so that your grandchildren will talk to you 20, 30, 40 years from now. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $60,660. Sats per dollar, 1,649. Block height, 849,843. Blocks to having 200,157. Having estimate March 26, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity 4,903 Bitcoin. Capacity value 297 million. Realized monetary inflation 1.56%. Market capitalization 1.2 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 7.53%. That was an amazing conversation in the beginning, and I don't want to take the momentum out of it. So what I'm going to do, Uncle Jack, is I'm going to play this video, and I think it really shows some things, and I think it's going to lead to more great conversation. So This is a younger gentleman on TikTok, and it's really interesting. He discovered something. It's almost as if they're lying to us about the official inflation numbers. Let's check out the video, and then we'll talk about it.
I feel like I'm gonna be sick. I just looked through my Walmart history, and I found this Walmart order from 2 years ago for the whole month worth of groceries. 45 items cost $126. A whole month of groceries just for me, basically. But I did notice this reorder all button, and I wanted to see how much it would cost now. Now, this order of 45 items for 1 month would have cost $414. That is 4 times more. How the fuck? How? What?
I mean, that's theft. Is that not theft? That is
Well,
theft.
I mean, I think it's actually proof of not only theft. I think most Bitcoiners know what inflation is. It's legalized stealing without legislation. But I think the bigger story is what you guys led with. The fact that the numbers have been cooked. The reason why is when you realize that you're going through an economic reset, you have to make sure you remove all the fire alarms.
Uncle Jack, I'm going to stop you right there. What is an economic reset?
Well, an economic reset is kind of what they're trying to do to get us to a CBDC. Remember that the industrial military complex needs some kind of activity to continue to run their power program going in the future. So what they'd like to do is to get us to something or money system that they can control. Bitcoin is not that system. This is the reason why you see Biden and his administration pushing so hard back on it. So what's the best way to try to prime the system to get what you want? Well, let's run a simulation, which is what we lived through the last 4 years. COVID basically was a compliance test for an economic reset. They wanted to see how much they could push you, to see how many people would do the things that they wanted you to do through mandates, how many people would roll the sleeves up, how many people would take their businesses being closed, how far could they push us to get where we are. So now we've got this young kid on TikTok showing that the real inflation numbers for real Americans is actually 147 to 414. That doesn't jive with any of the things that you heard from the stage yesterday, either from Trump or Biden. I can't say anything about Bobby because Bobby didn't really talk too much about that. But we as Bitcoiners know where that problem came from. It came from the $6.2 trillion that we spent through COVID. So you have to realize what was really COVID. COVID was an economic reset. They wanted to see how far they could push us. The real problem, the accurate diagnosis that I don't think a lot of Bitcoiners have made, is why did the industrial military complex come out so hard against Trump? Well, he put 3 Supreme Court justices on the court, but he put 2 of them that are experts in the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is a huge impediment to getting a CBDC. This is the reason why they went hog wild crazy to get rid of them, because the next thing that they want to do is they're setting it up with the bird flu. They're going to go after your food. They're going to go after so many different things to give you an emergency so that they'll push the majority of the people that complied during COVID to say, yeah, well, if you don't have any money and your money's no good and you have a 6102 event for fiat where you go to the bank and your money's no longer available to take out, but hey, we got this really cool thing that the BIS told us about, which is a CBDC, and you can have your money back, on Monday, but you're not going to have it this weekend. Dude, this is just preconditioning the obedient idiots that are in the United States, to a new way of doing business. And you can see it, through the World Economic Forum, the things that Klaus Schwab has been talking about. All the global elites that were linked and made more money than anybody else through COVID, those are the guys. Those are the guys behind the plan, the Jeff Bezos, the Zuckerbergs, the people that control the media. They all printed money. They sit right close to the Cantillon effect. And the guys in my industry, which is, we call them big pharma. Why? Because they didn't do anything to help the public health out. In fact, what they did is they showed the government just how many people would comply with the next emergency. And the next emergency is going to be tied to confiscating your money.
Yeah, 100%. In a way, they have that mechanism now via inflation, right? It's
but it's not on their timetable, my friend. Just remember that. That's the big difference. That right now, you just saw it last night. You guys talked about it. You think Biden can last till he's 86?
No.
Do you?
No
well,
way.
there's your answer. So guess what? They got to put somebody in to actually execute the plan. Remember, ideation without execution leads to deletion of every good idea. If you don't think that the guys against you right now don't understand that, they have got to get this plan done. Like the Fed may not be ready for the CBDC, but guess what? They're ready now. They need to do something very, very quickly.
Yeah, and 100% too. And this is something we've been covering over, the last couple of months as well, is despite what they say, they're moving full steam ahead with the CBDC. And in Europe, they've been way more successful because they don't care at that point. They're like, we know you guys don't want it, but we're going to shove it in there. We're going to change the word. We actually covered this on yesterday's episode, the day before, Dr. Jack. And I noticed, I was like, they changed the word from CBDC to digital euro, right? Little bait and switch. They said, oh, we're going to keep physical cash, which is bullshit, right? But, they have to get that over the finish line. And of course, they sprinkled their favorite word in there, which is democracy, right? Which kind of like justifies everything because it's, so-called democratic. But yeah, it's.
I still want to remind, though, Bitcoiners that we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And that is something that all Bitcoiners need to remember. I pointed it out when I was in El Salvador to Bukele. This is the reason why I think constitutional changes are mandatory. It's one of the big arguments that I had with Bobby Kennedy when I did the Tetragrammaton podcast with Rick. I like Bobby. You can't sue these captured parts of the government out of existence. This is the United States. This is not like El Salvador. It's not even like Argentina. You need to go after these people with strong curbs. Why? The government has already shown us just how evil they are. That started even before 71. I know you guys as young Bitcoiners like to always point back to 71. Looking at this problem from 71 is myopia. This problem began really, I think, in 1900 with the McKinley election, but then it really ramped up when we got the Fed. And when the Fed was given control truly of the government through money printing, dude, we've been on a fast shitstorm for 120 years to where we are now. The difference now is that if you go back and read the Federalist Papers, the technology that Jefferson and Madison were looking for is fucking Satoshi. Okay, he came out. He took Adam Back's idea of proof of work, but he was amazing in adding time stamping to it, and that was able to create the digital ledger out in the environment where money became immutable. Proof of work mechanism is based, in biology, but you got to have time stamping. And most people keep forgetting. We said no to seconds and hours and yes to minutes, 10-minute blocks. So effectively, what Satoshi did, he had to be a guy that was based in physics because he realized that Newtonian physics, controlling for time, was the key to making money and solving the double spend problem, solving the Byzantine generals' issue. And to me, now we have what Jefferson and Madison wanted. We now have the solution. It's up to us to take it the next level. And we need to be very, very accurate as Bitcoiners. When we do shows like this, we do podcasts with people and tell people this bleeds into everything. I just came back from Prague, Bitcoin Prague, and showed people how health and wealth are fundamentally linked. And the guys that I use as an example is I used Steve Jobs, Paul Allen, and Hal Finney. I said, what good is having $9 billion worth of Bitcoin if you're fucking dead by the time you're 60? And I mean, you guys are young. I don't want to see any young Bitcoiner actually go out and do all the right things, the things that Max Kaiser talks about, the things that Bukele talks about, the things that Jack Mallers talks about, the things that you guys talk about, and have all this money and realize you can still take yourself out at 60 years old because you didn't solve for the most important thing. The most valuable asset that we all have is time. And most of us piss through it. And just because you got $9 billion of Bitcoin, I threw those three guys up on the stage. I said, here it is, a hardware guy, a software guy, and a Bitcoin guy. Don't tell me it can't happen to you because it's happened to them. Realize that there's another part of the story. And I want people to understand that you need to decentralize your life completely. The way you think, your money, your health, your wealth, your family, the people that you love. You need to infect them with that virus. That's the virus that I want everybody to get.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right.
Absolute bars. Hold on.
I want to keep this conversation going, but we got to pay more bills. So I do want to give a shout out to some sponsors. Of course, I'm talking about the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. The Orange Pill app is the Bitcoin social layer. Join the 11,081 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. And of course, I also want to give a shout out to the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host Bitcoin miners. And of course, I'm talking about KABOOMRACKS. KABOOMRACKS. To check out the racks, all you got to do is scan the QR code on the screen or check the link in the video description. That will take you directly to their Telegram marketplace, where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them. And also they have a special sale going on for instant hosting. They're offering instant hosting for the S19K Pro. You own the miner. This is not a hash rate contract, and your hash rate goes online after you make the payment. Anyways, going back to the conversation, Opti, we're just gonna have a very long culture.
We'll just redo the title.
No, it's all good. We'll hit that topic towards the end. But yeah, I just want to continue this conversation with Uncle Jack and take advantage of this time. Yeah, it's health is wealth 100%. I think that's, it's lost to a lot of people, or perhaps that's something that young people take for granted. Now, you are a neurosurgeon, right? So you do have
that's how I feel at farm.
You do have some credentials in that area, right? So what made you so passionate about that specific subject, Uncle Jack?
Well, the way I came into Bitcoin was I decentralized health a long time ago. Most people in the centralized medical paradigm believe everything's about RNA and DNA. We have another genome in our cells called mitochondrial DNA, and it turns out mitochondrial DNA is where the proof of work mechanism is in biology. The key is understanding proof of work through mitochondrial DNA wasn't enough. I realized that time was the big issue, that you have to have proper time stamping. What is a time stamping mechanism in biology? It's called circadian timing. So the circadian mechanism, time tells energy how to flow through matter. That is a deep concept that's based in quantum mechanics. So when I knew this 20 years ago, when I was 40 years old, I'm 60 now. When I came to Bitcoin, because guys like Jack Dorsey or my friends said, bro, you need to take a look at this money. And, I'll be the first one to tell you, for the first 3 or 4 years in Bitcoin, I didn't really understand a lot about it. And then when I, became the class of 2013, I started to realize that the difference between cells and Bitcoin were very minor. Cells use Einstein's relativity to timestamp. Bitcoin uses Newtonian physics to timestamp, but that made the ledger immutable. And I realized right away, the reason Satoshi did this is because he needed some way to make sure that there was a proper ledger where we would know that money couldn't be spent twice. And I thought to myself, this is absolutely brilliant. And I think the reason I adapted to it that fast is because of my understanding about how cells use timing to control energy flows. And when I had my epiphany 20 years ago, I basically stopped believing most of the bullshit that I was taught in residency and medical school, because it turns out if you get timing wrong, like if you don't see the sunrise every morning and you don't see the sunset and you use artificial light, all hours of the night, which most Bitcoiners do, this is how you go from being Hal Finney running, races and wind up in a wheelchair with ALS. And the problem is no one in Bitcoin really can explain that to young guys like you, because they don't understand the science. And I don't expect people to understand the science, but what I do is I teach people that specific issue. And I've been doing that shit. I'm going to tell you, it was probably 8-9 years before I actually got in Bitcoin. And why I brought this to the table to Bitcoin actually was because of COVID, because I would tell you for the first 10 or 15 years of my career as a quantum biologist that everybody thought I was batshit crazy. Why? Because the things that I would say, I had to show you papers. There was no books out about this stuff. And it turned out around 2016 when the Nobel Prize was given for circadian biology, Jack Kruse has gotten less crazier every year since that time. And people now begin to realize that this underpins most of the chronic illnesses, that we have as Americans. And I would tell you, it's really globally. Why? Because we've changed the environment that we're in. And I would say, much like Satoshi did with money, he changed the environment for money. And I think a lot of people thought Satoshi was a joke, in the beginning, especially the people in the fiat system, like got people like Janet Yellen, even Trump, and I would say even Bobby Kennedy. But now people are beginning to wake up to it. Why? Because this inflation story that's out there is actually like COVID. It's actually woken people up on Wall Street. You can see it with the ETFs. You can see people who are fiat shills are now coming to Bitcoin. We've got the BlackRocks, the Larry Finks, we've got Paul Tudor Jones. All of these people went through the same type of epiphany that I went through in medicine. And I decided, I think I'm going to start talking a little bit more about Bitcoin. And I didn't do it with my members because I didn't think it was appropriate for a doctor who's teaching people about, circadian biology and mitochondrial DNA, about decentralized medicine, to really start talking about the money. And what changed that for me? It was July of 2020 when I had an illegal event at my clinic in Louisiana where I invited 100 people from all over the world, some of my best clients. And the number one thing I talked about wasn't health. It was about Bitcoin. And at the time, Bitcoin was $7,800 at that time. And I told them the story that I'm laying out to you guys about the people in Washington, D.C. are the biggest criminals in the world. And they're getting ready to unleash, because we were 6 months into COVID at that time. I told them what I felt was going to happen with the jabs based on the science, made a lot of predictions that all have now turned out to be true. And I said, there's only one way for you to protect yourself. I said, these people are coming after me now. I have to spend $50,000 a month to protect my medical license. But what allowed me to do that was the Bitcoin that I've been hodling for the last 7 years. And I was able to weather that storm while they closed my clinic, while they took all my elective cases away, while they tried to legislate me through the medical staff bylaws, while the State Medical Practice Act was being used against me. This is before COVID. I did a TED Talk that made the prediction about the science that I was talking about. I was telling people that the GLP-1 drugs that you guys probably know about now, that people are using for weight loss, I started talking about this 20 years ago, that these fuckers were going to create drugs so they could take advantage of people. And when COVID happened, Jack Kruse got a lot less crazy.
Yeah, no, the things, I think COVID, I mean, if you were a Bitcoiner, like, you knew, like, you already had, you already had an idea. I remember, when there was not that much information regarding the virus, like, I was wearing a mask on plane before the government even mandated. And then when I realized, like, this isn't like the Spanish flu that was disproportionately affecting younger people, this is more affecting, people that, let's say, are, not healthy. And the older generations, I was like, why do I need to wear a mask? Like this, this jab, I would say there's more risk for me.
That's the reason I said to you earlier, and I want you to really understand, because I know you young guys, especially in Bitcoin, I don't think you've really been afflicted by me yet. You need to realize it was about compliance. They wanted to see how far they could push us. For sure. 100%. And now that they've pushed us, I would tell you, we're split probably 60-40 in the United States. But I would tell you the 60, which was behind a lot of the mandates, behind the people that voted for Biden. Bro, last night, everything got taken to the woodshed. The stuff that's going on with Fauci now, the stuff that Massey and Rand Paul are doing, Like, you are tearing this wall down. And I think the 60-40, probably in the next 6-7 months, maybe 12 months, is going to go the other way. And I'll be the first one to tell you, a lot of people I took criticism for when I decided, no, I'm going to go to El Salvador. Little did I know that President Bukele was going to ask my help to help solve the problem that even he got afflicted with from the WHO. And this is the sign of great leadership. When you know you made a mistake, you said, no, this is not going to happen on my watch. I'm going to do something to help the people. Dude, if you ever thought in a million years that I thought that I'd be tapped to write a constitutional amendment for medical freedoms, I would have thought, if anything, maybe someone in the United States would have asked me, not a guy in El Salvador who made Bitcoin legal tender, first with Jack. And when I saw truly how he thinks, and that's the thing I really want to hammer to you guys. This man gets it. He is George Washington on steroids. He wants to do things to help the people out. It became pretty clear to me that not only did I need to help him, but I thought the help that we were doing on the Oasis in El Salvador eventually would lead here, so that someday guys from Simply Bitcoin would invite me on their platform and say, tell me what happened in the basement. How did a guy who's a neurosurgeon wind up in El Salvador, do this? Because guess what? I can tell you this about Bukele. He wants to see the world change. It's not about everybody needs to move to El Salvador. It's about realizing that we have to take our sovereignty back. And the thing is, we need great leaders, and he is a great leader. He's got Bitcoin behind him. He's now got medical freedom. I got news for you. You guys are going to be really shocked when you see some of the other things that are coming now that he's been re-inaugurated, just in the last couple of weeks. If you think he's done, he's like, hold my beer. Wait till you see what I got coming next. Some of you young cats, you're going to love it.
Absolutely. No, and I've been, a strong supporter of Bukele. I'm Latin American, right? I know that region, and I know the politics, and what he's doing there is inspirational to the point that, El Salvadorians don't leave. They don't leave the country, right? They see hope,
or they're going
in their
back,
country, or they're going back. Right?
You know what I was gonna tell both of you guys. Do you know what the biggest immigration story is going to be in the next 2 or 3 years? When all the Salvadorians leave LA, leave the United States, and come back. Because guess what? That is going to make that country even stronger. Now, is Salvador ready for it yet? No, not yet. But is he setting everything up to actually bring back huge things? Absolutely. Is he tapping, part of the law that I wrote, I put down there that we needed to give passports to people who are executors. No longer is it just about good ideas. You have to have people that can execute on the idea. So I put that in the law that we need to get engineers, we need to get builders, we need to get doctors, we need to get nurses that can really change things fast in El Salvador. And now you can see that Max and Stacy are working with, Bukele to actually pull this off. It makes me really happy to see that these ideas that started at Playa Mesada, 18 months ago, to see a leader say, this is a good idea, therefore we're going to execute and we're going to do it. And hopefully, some of the people listening to your guys' show, they say, I want to be part of that. I actually think that the change that we saw last night in the debate, many of you Bitcoiners, you young guys, we need some of you to start running for office. I need, instead of Parker Lewis, doing Unchained Capital, how about we get him to run for Congress in fucking Texas? How about we get some of those people? We displace the Elizabeth Warrens and the Brad Shermans. Some of you guys, like, hang up your Simply Bitcoin podcast. I need you guys to run. I need you guys to tell people what we need to do. Because I look at Bitcoiners, I look at your generation. You are the future. My son is a Bitcoiner. He's an OG Bitcoiner. He's 30 years old. He is a huge bull. He's actually an engineer who Bukele's trying to hire to run the new coconut oil factory down there so we can put seed oils out of business, and super selectos down there. So we can change the world if we think about it. And I think, you guys are doing your part. I've listened to so many of your shows, but I want to light people up in the audience, say, let's go. Let fucking go. We need to do everything decentralized. We don't have the time we think we have. We don't want to wind up like Steve Jobs or Hal Finney. Okay. I want you guys to experience the life that I had early in my life, where the fiat system was great for me. I took full advantage of it. Okay. But now I'm not happy with what my generation is left for you guys. I'm not happy about it at all. So I'm doing something about it.
I love this,
Oof.
Jack. This was hold on. Let's give him some horns. This is incredible. And one of my fundamental thesis as just being a Bitcoiner and just the way that we think about the world is I truly believe that Bitcoiners, because of our worldview, because we work from first person fundamentals, we have a better predictive power. And you were mentioning that you've predicted a lot of this stuff. So I would love to give you an opportunity right now to potentially, expose our audience to what you think is going to come down the line. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Dr. Jack Kruse, but Uncle Jack, what are you predicting we're seeing coming down the pipeline in, I don't know, whatever time frame you want, 6 months, a year, maybe 4 years? Like, what do you predict is going to happen so people can keep their heads on a swivel?
I think I'll give you a couple, both in my area and then say the Bitcoin area. And let's start with the Bitcoin area. I think Bitcoin is going to radically continue to change the politics of the United States in a good way. But I think there's a lot of people out there. We don't have term limits in the United States, but I think Bitcoin is actually the term limit issue. If people are not behind Bitcoin, we need to vote them out. Even if you like them because of the abortion issue or because, they support your religion, we need Bitcoiners to actually start throwing their money besides candidates to clear the debt. For example, I've told you, I'm not really a fan of the uniparty, either Democrat or Republican. In my career, I've voted for both parties. I can't support Trump and I can't support Biden. I've got my support behind Bobby Kennedy. The reason I do is because he's a Bitcoiner and he's for medical freedoms. I think where Bobby needs to go further, we need to go after the industrial military complex that controls Big Pharma, because Big Pharma is actually fueling a lot of the forever war money. We need to eliminate that. So let me give you one of the things that I haven't talked about too much in Bitcoin circles, but I did mention it in Prague. So I'm working with a company that you guys may have heard of, Zorp. They do zero knowledge proofs. One of the Bitcoiners there is named Sam Parker. Sam and I sat down right before the Age of Light event when Bukele announced the constitutional amendment to his people in El Salvador in February. I came up with an idea to use the open timestamps in Satoshi's algorithm so that we could eliminate IP from Big Pharma. Realize that if you take the money away from Big Pharma, you basically eliminate the big issue in centralized medicine. I think that medicine should work for the people, not against the people. And everything that I've seen in my 40-year career in medicine has been exactly the opposite. But it's good for doctors who play ball with that system because they make money. The problem is patients are not getting better. And one of the things that I tell Bitcoiners, because most of you guys are relatively young and healthy, you can make a lot of mistakes the first 3 decades of your life. But when your mitochondrial heteroplasmy goes up and things start to change, the reason why we have all these chronic diseases, people are getting taken to the woodshed much earlier now. I'm seeing kids with carotid artery disease at 20 and 30 years old. I never saw that early in my career. And it's because the economy has been retooled through DARPA, through Google, through Meta, to do things to put screens in front of you guys. You're all addicted to it. Your dopamine levels are lower. And Big Pharma has taken huge advantage of this. And Big Pharma, I think, has killed more people than anybody else. Maybe even, it probably hasn't beaten the Catholic Church yet, but it's pretty damn close. And I think they're harming more people than we can imagine. And I think Bitcoin can fix this. And the idea that I came up with, if you give me some latitude, is Kevin McKiernan, who I think should be nominated for the decentralized Nobel Prize. Hopefully Jack Dorsey will come out and offer that prize someday. But when Kevin found out the problem with the vaccines and started posting about it, and I started resonating loudly with this message, Kevin worked with Craig Ventnor in the Human Genome Project. He left that, and now he works in medicinal cannabis. And his whole idea in 2017 was to put cannabis genomes out there for guys like you in the future. Like if you ever got interested in this, like when you got an autoimmune condition or cancer or something else, that you could look for another opportunity outside of drugs. You could use, what nature provides with cannabis. And he said putting the genomes out there is important. So they used an idea because you couldn't get funding to do any of this. No one would pay for this research. Kevin pointed out a really interesting way to do this using blockchain technology. And it used a DAO system back then. And I remember reading the papers in 2017, and I kept thinking about this. I'm like, this is a fucking great idea, but I don't want to get involved with any shit coins. I don't want to get involved with any of the DAOs that are out there. And then I had my come to Jesus moment through COVID when I said, dude, there's open timestamps. If we use the open timestamps as a ledger for IP, we can totally fucking destroy Big Pharma. So I sat down with Kevin. I sat down with Jay Bhattacharya, with the guy that was, fired from Harvard, Martin Kulldorff. I sat down with the guys at Zorp, and I gave them my idea. I actually gave Bukele this idea early on. And Bukele looked at me and he goes, dude, this is a crazy good idea where we can use decentralized money to actually fix the Cantillon effect in Big Pharma. And you know what? We don't need their permission to do this. In fact, Satoshi gave us everything that we need to do it. The problem was I needed the guys from Zorp. Once I understood, I went to an Urbit conference in Portugal about, I'd say 8 months ago, and sat there and didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. And Sam Parker sat with me and explained to me what a zero knowledge proof was. And after about 3 or 4 hours, I figured it out. I said, dude, this is the answer I've been looking for to take Big Pharma completely apart, utilizing what Zorp is doing and what the open timestamps are giving us an opinion for. And I think Satoshi put the open timestamps there for us to use. We haven't figured it out yet. And, much like the Bitcoin developers, their job is to figure out what we can do on layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. I think this thing is sitting right there and it's a huge opportunity. And no, I know that I'm not going to get this opportunity to do this in the United States because the United States government and the military is behind Big Pharma. So is the media because they're the ones that pay for all the ads. So this little guy in El Salvador listened to this idea and he goes, we need to do something with this. So that's when I sat down with Nicole Shanahan before she was announced as VP. And when she told me she wanted my help with her daughter, Echo, who had autism, and I punched her in the mouth pretty good. I told her that you and Sergey are the reasons why she's got the autism. It starts with the blue light patents, and she's a patent attorney. I pulled no punches with her. And I told her, I said, I have an idea. And she goes, okay, I want to give you $100 million to open up a decentralized hospital and medical facility in El Salvador to do this. Little did I know, I refused the money, but she did give $5 million to the kid named Anjan Kata, who you should have on your program, because most of your audience needs to know about this, is a daylight computer that has no blue light in it. I said, we need to stop kids that are young who own Bitcoin from getting sick, killing themselves, and having all the problems that I deal with. So she gave him $5 million to keep him out of bankruptcy because Sergey Brin and his friends in Silicon Valley try to destroy him. And then I said, then you need to spend 20 million of the 100 million with a guy down in University of Texas to study red light treatment and autism so that we can help your daughter. And I said, let's see how the rest goes to the 75 million. If you like these ideas to begin with, I got another idea for you, which is the idea that I just shared with you guys about the zero knowledge proofs and the open timestamps. And then Bobby Kennedy taps Nicole to be the VP. So I don't know how it's going to go, but I can tell you this, that this boomer is not sitting on his ass. I know that I'm not getting off this planet alive. I know I'm going to die, but I'm going to try, much like, the people that put these trees around me here, those trees were planted before I was born, and I'm getting the benefit of those trees now. So I look at this idea utilizing zero knowledge proofs, Bitcoin, and open timestamps to try to improve the world for Nico and Opti's kids, for the people that are eventually going to run this country. I think that we all can do more, and I think each one of us has a unique opportunity to do what we can do, just like you guys do with your show, just like I've done with mitochondrial biology. Now I've decided to step my game up. Now I'm using, some of my friends in Bitcoin, some of the people that I came into, the people that taught me. When Dorsey told me in Miami, he goes, I need you to decentralize everything, Jack, because that's what I need you to do. Bro, that's how I wound up on your show. That's my goal.
Man. Oh man.
Wait. Before we go, there was a good question. Wait, Nico, hold on. One question and then wrap it up. One question. Okay.
No, we got to pay the bills and then we're going to continue the conversation, brother. All right. So, Jack was mentioning ads, but we got our ads because we got Bitcoin ads. All right, everybody. So you guys definitely don't want to miss the best party that's going to be happening around the Bitcoin 2024 conference. And of course, I'm talking about the Pleb Party in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be a 12-hour open bar from noon to midnight in Nashville, the day before the largest Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin 2024. It's going to be July 25th on a Thursday. Confirmed attendees include Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Bubby, Adam O'Brien. It's going to be hosted in an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. The last Pleb Party in Miami was sold out 8 days before. That's right. There's a limited amount of tickets. Over 1,000 Bitcoiners are expected to attend. You don't want to miss the Pleb Party in Nashville, Tennessee. Also, probably a good idea to get yourself a hardware wallet, not your keys, not your cheese. And of course, I recommend Foundation by Passport by Foundation Devices. Completely open source, incredibly easy to use. For whatever reason, if you don't take self-custody of your Bitcoin, it's not really your Bitcoin. So I highly recommend a hardware wallet. And of course, check out our sponsor, Passport by Foundation Devices. And by the way, if you use the promo code SIMPLY, you get a discount. And if you've never used a hardware wallet before, you can use their concierge service and they will onboard you themselves and show you how to take self-custody and put your Bitcoin into cold storage. All right, Opti.
Okay. All right. I think this is a perfect way to put a bow tie on today's show. Absolutely incredible. We had a Dr. Jack Kruse, Uncle Jack takeover on today's episode, which was absolutely incredible. But someone in the chat, actually, James Caruso asks, I need to know from Jack what the 3 best things we can do for our health is. So I think it's the best way to wrap up today's show, give people some calls of action, some actionable advice. So what is, in your opinion, the 3 best things people can do for their health?
Number 1, never miss a sunrise the rest of your life. You make sure that you get into it. You don't have to see it directly. You just have to make sure you're up when the sun rises so your brain can tell the right time. It would be really helpful if number 2 would be that you see the sunset as well, so your brain can tell when the keys go off. And then probably the single most important one for Bitcoiners. Most of you are addicted to technology. I want you to be addicted to technology during the day. Use the daylight computer, but at nighttime, everything needs to go off. I don't want you to turn in to Steve Jobs, to Paul Allen, or Hal Finney. And unfettered use of technology after it's dark is a real problem. If you do those 3 things, this is Pareto's principle for Jack's, quantum health paradigm, is you'll stay away from guys in centralized medicine that look to do things to you that probably are like putting sausage into a sausage maker.
Damn.
Incredible.
Wow. Okay. Sunrise, sunset, stay away from blue light after dark, right?
And not just blue light, but remember, non-native EMF. I mean, if you guys got a little time, I'll give you a quick story.
Yeah, hit it.
Why this is a big deal. So most of you probably never read Steve Jobs' autobiography written by Walter Isaacson. But one of the things that came out in there is the iPad 2 had a device in it that turned off the emission of RF and microwaves. And the reason why it was in there is because Jobs knew that EMF was bad for children. The interesting part of the story is that Apple never marketed that. And do you guys know why they never marketed it?
No clue.
Well, because then you would have started asking questions. Why would you put this type of device in your device if there was no side effects? And one of the things that came out of Isaacson's book on Jobs is from his own mouth. Steve Jobs said, my kids will not use my technology. So I want you, all the Bitcoiners listening, to do a hard stop. Realize that your brain, remember, I am a brain surgeon, so I know a little bit about this. The myelin around your brain protects you from non-native EMF. Your brain is not fully myelinated until you're 28 years old. So realize that if you're a tech abuser, sorry, Pensacola pilots are flying over. If you're a tech abuser from the time, say, you're 3 or 4 years old to, say, you're 28, this is the reason why you shitcoin. This is the reason why you fiat farm. This is the reason why you have a hard time, doing the right things. It's the reason why you may want to go out and drink at night, and the reason why you may become transgender, the reason why you may have other problems. You don't realize how much of the science links to this story. And that's why I said to you, if you guys just learn to use technology wisely, I'm not telling you I want you to take your technology away. I just want to make sure that all of you can live to the ripe old age of Charlie Munger and Buffett, so that you can say, something else is rat poison when you're 90 or 95 years old.
Beautiful.
Incredible.
Beautiful. What a Friday special.
Wait.
Man.
Hold on. We got to give Jack some horns. For today's episode, Dr. Jack Kruse takeover. I absolutely love when we have a guest that just spits so much sauce that we have to redo the whole show so that we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely.
So, guys, really appreciate it. We'll cover the topic next week.
We'll cover it on Monday. All good.
We'll retitle this, but all good. I think we couldn't have asked for a better show. This was an incredible show today. Thank you so much, Uncle Jack.
Hey, I just want to say to both of you guys, I appreciate coming on. And just realize, keep doing what you're doing. Keep educating. Don't think that you're not making a difference, because you are.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much. Just got the chills. Really appreciate it. That
really means a lot. And everybody, we retitled today's episode on YouTube Rumble already, and Opti will retitle it on the podcasting platforms. Friday special. I really enjoyed today's conversation, and we're definitely going to have Dr. Uncle Jack back on the show.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So he can drop some more fire. Anyways, guys, I hope you have an amazing weekend. Don't forget to see the sunrise.
Wait, Nico.
And don't use technology after dark.
Before we sign off today, Uncle Jack, where do you want the audience to look if they want to hear more about what you're talking about?
Yeah, I would just tell you, Dr. Jack Kruse is my handle everywhere on social media. I got a book on Amazon if you're interested in learning about why Ozempic is out there killing people now. That book starts that whole story. It's on Amazon. It's called the Epipaleo RX. If you want the real fire, you become a member. Just go to my website, info@cruiseatdestin.com, or if you just want to read the stuff that I'm writing, Patreon / Dr. Jack Kruse. Like I said, you'll find me in Amazon. You'll find me in Clubhouse. If you really want to find me, come down to El Salvador. You'll see me at the beach. You'll see me at Bitcoin Beaches Farmers Market. I'm accessible down there. And if you're a Bitcoiner, you will find me in El Salvador. I promise you that.
Beautiful.
Let's go.
All right, everybody. Hope you have an amazing weekend.
Epic Friday, Nico. Epic
Friday episode. Hope everyone has an amazing weekend. See the sunrise, see the sunset, and no technology after dark. Simply Bitcoin out. We'll see you guys next week. Opti's going to be taking over because I'm going to be in Canada, so it's going to be great. All right, everybody.
Episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.